welcome everybody to True Business Stories podcast. Well, Mark, I think we've done 60 interviews by now.
Seems like only yesterday.
I've lost count. We know we've got a few in the bag, and we've got, my list is up to 28 future interviews, so I don't know how the hell we're going to get through all of that.
But they've all been good. We've learnt from people, we've learnt about people, and they've got some good stories. So
yeah, and on top of that, you and I are running a session for Small Business Month in Geelong, and the topic of it is build a better business, and we're actually taking what we've learnt out of our interviews, the best of the interviews, and we're going to present those to a group of, we've got 28 people, I think, coming to that at the moment. But also leads me to the fact that the finalists of the Geelong Business Awards have been announced, and you and I are judges on those awards.
And there's some good businesses. And again, there's businesses that you and I looked at and said, never heard of them.
That's right. Oh, well, that's the way it goes.
Anyway, Bill, who's with us today?
Well, today we've got John Fitzgerald, known as John Fitz, whose company is called, what is it, John?
It's a marketing masterstroke. It's called JFITZ Consulting.
Oh, yeah.
But the masterstroke is I've got the JFITZ in capitals.
That's right. John is a well-known person around Geelong. I can tell you that. Wherever you go in Geelong, you go to a function, you go to something, you turn around the corner and you're going to jump into...
There I am.
And you normally say, do you know Fitzy? And they go, yes. So.
But he does some amazing work around Geelong. He does a lot of work for not-for-profits and for other organisations. And he's got an interesting background, which we'll hear about as we get into this. And I'll leave it to you, Mark, to start the conversation.
Let's start the conversation. So, John, you're a Geelong born and bred man, I would take it. But tell us, where did life start? Where did you go to primary school?
Sort of. I went to... my family were originally from Colac and Apollo Bay, and we moved to Geelong when I was about 6 or 7. Did all the Catholic stuff. Went to St Robert's Primary School, and then on to St Joey's, and then I went into the workforce and did a part-time commerce degree at Deakin Uni with a couple of mates of mine. They were in the old days where you had to sit the exam to get the. You couldn't get a job in the Commonwealth Bank unless you sat the exam, and same with the public service in those days.
So what was your first job?
I worked for the Commonwealth Bank.
And before that, did you do anything when you were at school?
I worked around... We lived down in Frank Street in Newtown, not far from where we're sitting today. And I worked at Jeff Woods. A lot of people would remember the old Jeff Woods the grocery store in Stinton Avenue, landmark Newtown place. So I worked there for a while, and then I did the paper round out of Purdy's. I had the silk paper round. I had Roebuck Street, Virginia Avenue, and Laurel Bank Parade, which was highly sought after at the time. I think I was able to sell it to a kid when I retired.
Did you get tipped
out of
well?
that? Yes, got tipped well. They were very generous.
Mark, isn't it amazing? You know how many people we've interviewed. I say out of all those 60 interviews we've done, people started off in the bank.
Yep.
Right, a lot of them. How many of them were doing paper rounds?
Yep.
And if you remember our interview with our farmer mate, and he had so many papers on his bike used to go along on one wheel off the ground.
Yeah. That Saturday Age was an absolute killer. And the Addy, so they were all loaded up on the Saturdays. And on the Saturdays, some people wouldn't get the paper during the week, but they just get the Saturday one, so it's pretty tough.
Well, a couple of coincidences there, Mark, is that I went to when we moved down to Geelong in the 50s. So I ended up as a boarder in grade 5 at St Joseph's. But as we were discussing before this, it was a very different school in those days. In fact, I think it was a subsidiary of the Geelong Jail, if I remember rightly.
Well, that quadrangle area in the middle there, when Paul Tobias arrived there, who's a great man and principal and really helped turn the school around, he said he'd seen the Moe bloody high security grounds, and he said it looked exactly like that.
That's right. And by coincidence, I've got 2 grandchildren at St Robert's at the moment.
Right.
Yeah. Anyway, let's move on.
On. So you get out to the Commonwealth Bank?
Yes, got to... and in those days, CBA was a big... I was on the corner of Mirabel, Mallup Street. I reckon it's double story, there would have been... they would have had to employ 70 people, I reckon, which when you think of today, when they're just trying to shut down everything that resembles people having people involved. So I worked there I had about 6 years there, and
What were you doing?
I was just the general stuff. Started off, became the teller and all that sort of stuff, and I think I got to the highest I got to was I was the assistant to the trading bank manager, which was pretty good. He was an interesting character. A lot of long lunches.
Those were the days.
Those were the days. 3 o'clock closing.
John, one thing I remember as a kid in Mallop Street, because corner Mallop and
Moorabool and Mallop.
That's right.
It's the Bendigo, where the Bendigo
Because
Bank branch is today.
My father's business, they used to bank down the old ES&A down the other corner, and I can remember on every now and again I go past the Commonwealth Bank and there's a line of people out the door.
Yeah.
That was pension day.
Pension day.
They came to get their money.
Yep.
Pension day, and it was what I did. When they opened the Geelong West branch, I went to the Geelong West branch. That was bedlam because it was pension day, and it would be all the Croatians and the Italians sending money back. So they'd be sending drafts back to Zagreb and Roma, but it was a fantastic experience.
Good
great people, and just good people.
So how did you escape from the bank?
A mate of mine rang me one day, and he was in the ANZ, and he had been 3 months with Faro Corporation, Pyramid Building Society.
Yeah. Oh, okay.
What could go wrong? And he said, "You got to come over here. This is great." Having the time of our lives, we're flying all over the country. It's exciting, and so I did. I got a little bit more money, and it just seemed it had a real buzz about it. Like they were doing, Bill and David were smashing it, and they were massive in Geelong, and so I went over there, and it was a really good experience, but it just ended so badly that I had 3 years. We had 3 years, and I still remember this. At the AGM each year, they'd have a bit of a party thing, and virtually double their assets every year for 3 years. And then in the fourth year, they were in liquidation. And so I did 3 years before they went into liquidation, and then 3 years with Ferrier Hodgson in Melbourne on the workout. Yeah.
So how old were you then in those days?
I reckon I would have been maybe mid-20s, I reckon.
Yeah.
So when I went over, I was pretty young, and it was a really young crew, and it was, they were footballers and cricketers because, there was that sort of mentality. A lot of St. Joey's, Geelong College guys. So it was a really good environment, but it was just, there's a bit of stuff that was, they just weren't doing some things right, and that the rumour at the time was that the banks were reacting because they were taking big market share, and that the banks didn't like it, and they started the rumours. And as soon as the run started, it was all over. They lasted about another 6 months.
Well, certainly a historic period for Geelong. Now, I just want to change the subject for a minute because looking through the internet last night, I came across something from the Geelong Advertiser, and it said, legendary local footy figure, right? John Fitzgerald.
It sounds like me.
So tell us about your football career.
How did you get into it?
I started playing footy like you did in those days. And actually in those days, I used to play in the local Newtown team, and then when you went to school at St. Joey's, they made you play at the school. You didn't have a choice, and that's all changed now. They've got kids everywhere, which is fantastic. I just sort of loved it and played it all the way through, and I played for St. Joey's, and I was lucky enough to play played in a couple of premierships. I played in the under-19s at Geelong, played a bit of under-19s and reserves for sort of half a year, and then
Enjoy it?
It was pretty good, but in those days the local clubs they didn't support you going. They didn't want you down at Geelong. They wanted you back playing with them. So they'd be actually offering you more money to come back and play. So unless you're really, you're really a chance. And I was a bit short and slow. So
what was your position?
I was rover half forward. But then I got the opportunity. So that was about 1980. I think I played, and then I'd get invited every year. They'd invite you to pre-season, you'd be on the list or whatever. And every now and then I'd go down for a couple of weeks, and it was too hard. And I had a bit of a career going, and that sort of stuff. So, but anyway, I went back down in 1986, and I was lucky enough to play. I actually played 8 games, 5 goals.
Well, that's good.
Yeah, that's my password.
memory.
If you want to
All
get me, if you want to own everything I've got.
But that's
So I was
good.
that was really lucky. And then I come back to St Joey's after that, played out my time, played a few flags, and then I went and coached South Barwon. And
How'd they go?
Good. We won a premiership there. Coached them for 4 years, and then I went and coached Bell Park.
Were you poached or were you?
I had 4 years at South, and then I took a couple of years off, and I sort of, because my son was sort of coming through playing juniors and that. So, and then I went and coached Bell Park for 5 years, and then my last stint was Drysdale. I had 3 years at Drysdale and finished 2015.
So
You miss
you're
it?
a wandering coach.
Yeah, I was. I was
Yeah.
sort of, but one of the best things I ever did was actually going to South Barwon, leaving the
Yeah.
comfort of, I've been at St Joe's all my life and that, and just sort of took a bit of a risk, and that actually flowed through a bit into my work stuff as well. You sort of,
Yeah.
it sort of taught you to say, well, I can do this. I can go into a new environment and sort of make it work.
Do you miss coaching?
Not really. I'd done my time.
You've done your time.
And I think, the generational stuff really was kicking it. So I think I finished 2015, and that whole, I was out of the old, when I played, it was the old blood and guts, rah-rah stuff. And when I coached, I hoped I wasn't like that, but there was a bit of that in it. But it was getting to that stage where you couldn't say anything. You had to be really careful about, and recruiting was hard. The generation now, I think, and even in work, you just find these kids, and it's not their fault, it's the way they've been brought up. But there is that, I just find there's that sort of entitlement thing where their expectations are high. It's all about, what can you do for me, mate?
Yep.
Not we love the club, or we love the firm, or whatever it is. It's they want to get
Are you
their
still
best
connected
opportunity.
in football in some ways? Do you?
I go to all I go to the reunion stuff at St Joey's and South Barwon and Bell Park, and I've still got a lot of friends in those clubs. So but I don't go and watch footy every week.
Yeah, okay.
But you would have built a tremendous network in Geelong.
Well, it definitely flowed
huge.
through into the work environment. Even, and I worked at St Joseph's College as well after the liquidation stuff, and so you just get to know. Great thing about footy clubs is they turn over quickly. You get a lot of people coming through, and I always say to the young guys that I work with now about, in terms of developing relationships, sporting clubs are fantastic.
But particularly in Geelong, and
Yeah.
this whole idea also of combined netball football clubs
Brilliant.
is that, I came back six years ago, whenever it was, and my kids were brought up in Melbourne, and you didn't see the mix and diversity of personalities and all the rest. It was down here. You don't play, as you just said, you don't play for the school. You go and play in the local club.
Yeah.
And then you're playing all over the place, and you're meeting. So between netball, basketball, football, my car's worn out picking up kids, right, or grandkids.
Well, now the girls are involved.
Yeah,
that's basically doubled the size of your sporting club. And I think if you looked at where most people got their first job, it's probably out of their sporting, whatever the sporting club relationship is.
Yeah.
Someone to give you a go.
That's right. Now, talking about jobs, tell us what you're doing right now.
Well, hang on. Before we get there,
sorry.
there's a step in between. So, Pyramid went to St Joe's. When did you get to the Bendigo back then?
So I went. So I was working in Melbourne with Ferry Hodgson, and Peter Cannon, who was principal at St Joey's, got in contact with me and said, we're starting a development office. We want to start a foundation, get some fundraising going, that sort of stuff. Are you interested? And yeah, I would. It was mainly actually to get out of Melbourne, and because I had a young family back working in Geelong. It was pretty sort of brutal travelling up every day. So I worked at St Joey's for about 15 years, which was a fantastic experience. So I think in terms of
That set the groundwork then for what you were doing.
yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
Well, and that was all in the corporate stuff. In those days, it was and in the liquidation, like Ferry Hodgson was brutal.
Really, yep.
And there wasn't a lot of compassion and empathy, and it was just get the job done. And then you go to a place like St Joey's where it was very much about nurturing relationships, asking for support, building that a climate for engagement. That was really good for me, and that it was a compassionate place. all that sort of stuff. So that was a really good grounding, and I got to that combined with footy. I just got to build a really big network of
and then you
people.
went to Bendigo Bank after
Yeah,
that?
I've been there 15 years. Time for a change. And and at Bendigo, I did a bit of business banking stuff, but then I moved into a role which was basically their business development stuff.
Yeah.
And the challenge with the bank, so that was about probably 2010, 12. And so working with Paddy Manane, who was a star. They had 22 branches in Geelong, which is in the Geelong region, which is unbelievable, isn't it? That's when you think now. And they built that big community bank network. It was huge. But the challenge was it was just flicking over to the online banking. So I did that for about 5 years. I reckon at the start it would have been 70% in branch, 30% online. And by the end of the 5 years, it was the other way around. And so my challenge was working with those branches on... These guys have been used to just, sitting in the office, someone comes in, wants a loan or open an account or whatever, to actually, we really had to get out and engage with the community. We're still kicking all this cash out through the community banks, but we had to do more work on following them up.
Who started the Connected? Was that Pat's idea?
Yeah, that was Pat's idea. And that was, Connected Communities was born out of, so you had all these community banks that were doing great things, and so Winch and Drysdale and Leopold, but the actual corporate Bendigo Bank, so you could... If you're at Winch Primary School, you'd walk into the Winch branch and say, "Can we have $5,000 for we want to do the playground?" If the Geelong West Primary School walks into the Geelong West branch, there just wasn't a budget for that sort of support. So Pat's concept was that they would pool up all of the corporate Geelong branches and start that as Geelong Connected Communities, which is still going. We're still doing 120 grand a year in grants, and it's going really well.
And it's interesting because I'm on the board of Benefit Geelong.
That's right, yes.
Which is the
and
new...
you're on Ocean Grove as well.
And we've merged the Ocean Grove into Benefit Geelong because
Yes.
it was getting too hard with a small organisation. And so it does good stuff.
Yeah.
And your Connected Communities is kicking goals and doing great stuff.
No, it's good. And look, I was down at a breakfast this morning with the Read the Play guys that do that. They do that stuff in the schools where they're on the drug and alcohol stuff, which is a bloody brilliant program. No funding at all, in terms of formal government funding. It's all Kempies have done a fantastic job funding it. But there's 280 people in the room. Gail Rogers is there. They're helping out. Costa Foundation are helping out. We're helping out. It's just, Geelong's just a great place for that.
It's good. It is good.
So bringing you back to my other question.
Sorry, Bill, I sidetracked you.
What's John Fitz doing now?
Sorry,
it's Friday, so what's happening?
Friday. Well, we're going to lunch in a minute. I was working with the bank, and you could just sort of see things were changing a bit in terms of the branch network and that. And I'd been there I was coming up for 10 years, so it's time for another change. And I was also on the chamber with Mark, and so I'd sort of built up a pretty good network and connections. And I'd be getting 2-3 phone calls a week. Can I have a cup of coffee? Can you introduce me to someone at Deakin? I want to meet the guys at the footy club, and you'd sort of be doing it. And it was good for the bank, but I was thinking this is actually this is intellectual property.
Yep.
And then the challenge was, well, how do you
monetize it?
Yeah, how do you create? How do you turn? And so it took me probably about 6 months to sort of work it out. But basically, what and I'm still doing it now, is just working with businesses that they're not big enough to have a full-time BDM, but they need that skill set, they need that component. So I work half a day a week with half a dozen businesses, and it's a good model. It's we're just talking about the footy and the coaching then. With these businesses, you're sort of doing a bit of that because you're mentoring the young guys. And the more I've seen of it, the soft skill set is huge, and it's getting bigger. If you're just a processor, as an accountant or an insurance broker or a lawyer, it's all going offshore. And it's if you haven't got the capacity to engage with clients and the potential to bring in business, it's going to be pretty hard, I
Well,
think.
and business is tough, and even today, right now in August, it's tougher than it's ever been.
Yeah, no doubt.
The now you've got a side hustle going,
Which side hustle's
propped
that?
by the bar,
I have guys.
which I watch religiously, and Mark
Yes.
I
does.
do too. I
So
absolutely love it.
just explain to our listeners about prop by the bar.
Well, so Gareth Kent, God love him, is one of my clients, and then
Sorry, how do you control him?
I don't.
Right.
I don't. I try. I try.
All right. So our
But
listeners
he's-
should watch Prop by the Bar.
Yeah,
You'll
watch
see.
Prop by the Bar. If you just Google it, we've got our own YouTube channel. We get about 2,000 views an episode, which is amazing.
Yeah.
And it came out of Gareth used to do a lot of presentations to the bankers and the accountants, and they're very good at it. The accountants and the lawyers. And as soon as COVID hit, you couldn't do any face-to-face stuff. So we thought, we might do similar to what you guys are doing here. We might do just a webinar or something. And then we thought, a webinar's pretty boring. It's a bit like a lecture. And then we thought, we'll do it. Well, we actually stole it directly off Prop by the Bar.
Yeah.
The
footy
Andy
show.
Marr and Mick Malloy. And then we got Michael involved because Michael's a great real estate agent.
Michael, explain who
DiStefano,
Michael is, yes.
It's very
from
good.
Gartlands. He's very good and a bit of eye candy for the viewers.
And he it's the, I guess, the yin and the yen between those two,
well,
isn't it?
The
That's-
Laurel and the Hardy.
Yeah. Well, the first one we did, we sort of didn't know how it was going to go, but they just gelled, the two of them. It was just perfect, and they just bounce off each other. We don't. None of it's scripted. We just sort of get. Well, you've been on it.
Yeah, it's great.
And Mark, and it's
very good.
just come in. We hardly used to sort of edit it a bit but
Yeah.
now we don't even really don't give it much of an edit because it's funny and it's not. I think the best thing about it is it's not polished. Which is a lot of that is Gareth
And it's great info too.
yeah. Oh, they're smart guys.
Well,
Both of them.
the
are
content's
very,
good. It's an
content's
interesting
good.
parallel there, John, because we often get asked, or often people now coming to us, can we be on your podcast? Yeah, if you pay me, you can be on my podcast. But we're not scripted, and you just let it flow.
Yeah.
And that's where prop works. 'Cause
That's
it
right.
just flows. It's cool info.
Yeah.
No, I think well done on putting that together.
Yeah.
I think
No,
it's a
it's-
great,
look, and the-
great show. And just repeat for our listeners, it's a video YouTube.
We've got our
My
own
voice is
YouTube,
gone.
yeah.
Sorry.
So it's Gareth and Michael, and I'm the producer, and Chris Bryan from Moo Media.
Moo Media,
You know
yep.
Chris Motion
Yep.
Grove does a fantastic job. Chris does all our filming, and so we try and do one a month. It's a bit like you guys. Getting the guest can be it's a bit of work there, and we've tried to get really as high level as we can, and people that are going to offer something that you don't often get to hear, and they're going to take. They're not going to be bloody just giving you the rote stuff. They're going to
And
give
your
you a
niche
bit
is
of-
property in reality, isn't
absolutely.
it? Yeah.
So and like, as you said before, that you couldn't really get two better qualified people in Geelong to talk about it in Michael and Gareth. They are all over it. They know it all, and it just. I think that's why it works.
Did you listen to the podcast we did with Gareth?
I did.
Yes. Well, that was an entertaining day
Yeah,
session.
he's
He's a good guy.
he is a good guy, and he's got and that even the background. He's the Meredith kid, the farmer's
That's right.
son. That's a good story, and he's built a great business. They're doing really well.
And his side work with Lazarus. It's
That's
just,
right. Well,
which is amazing.
Well, that's another. That's just a typical Geelong thing, isn't it? That they're people just put in and.
Well, you're giving back. So what's your, I guess, your number one community aspect at the moment?
Well, I'm still on Geelong Connected Communities. So sort of Pat and I have been on it from the start. So that's coming up to, I think we're up to 9 years.
Yeah.
And I really enjoyed the time on the Chamber. And actually, at the start, Bill, you were talking about what the Chamber are offering. It's just great to see them. That's a massive, Small Business Festival is huge. And the Business Excellence Award. And I think that latest appointment, I've met Jeremy a few times. He's a very
Good
impressive
guy.
man. Yeah, and on the go. So I really enjoyed that time. And I sit on the advisory board for the Salvation Army in Geelong, which
good.
Keith wrote me into. And look, they do a good job, and I think it's a good. If you can offer something, I reckon it's worth being involved.
So
if you can add a bit of value.
Where do you see your business going in the next couple of years?
Look, I've had all of my clients I've pretty much had for the period, so I would think that would keep going. And I do some work with Rob Trelfel and Greg Campitelli on philanthropic strategy, which is fundraising programs mainly, and I just sort of look after mostly the Geelong stuff. So we did the Anamkara appeal, Rob and I, which was a great success, and I'm doing some work with the Arts Centre at the moment. We're going to launch a public appeal to support the redevelopment of the Little Mallet Street, which is unbelievable. Everybody out there, if you get a chance, it opens in a couple of weeks. It is unbelievable. Great landmark.
Well, that and all the convention centre and all the other things are happening, and that, and as I say, the convention centre, Mark, and you're involved in some of that issue. That I don't think people realise what that's going to bring to Geelong.
It's a massive game changer.
Yeah. That's right.
The arts and the art gallery. Once the art gallery gets its expansion, and then Geelong will be fantastic.
Well, we are about to interview next week the new franchisee for the new Quest Hotel in Jerringham Street.
Terrific.
So, right timing there, isn't it?
And it's all drawing in.
And Paul Friends with the Holiday Inn, that's just, it is, that precinct, having done a bit of work with the Arts Centre, it's
huge.
Yeah, and who would have thought, in Geelong 15 years ago that these, like Quest and Holiday Inn, would just be building these places on spec, really. Yep. They're just backing in that it's going to be great.
Grand Plaza now at the convention centre.
I remember when Trans Otway were on that corner in a tin shed.
Unbelievable. And you couldn't, just to get something built when they did I think it was The View, the one on the corner of...
Swanson, was it?
Yeah, is it Bellarine? I had when I was at the bank, had a bit to do with the financing of that, and the study and research stuff they did just to get the click to build that, and now there's stuff going up everywhere,
which is fantastic.
Which is, and again, you're sort of having a bit of a crack at the state government, but I think that the state government have enabled a lot of that, haven't they? That no doubt that the WorkSafe TAC stuff has been an absolute game changer for the town.
Absolutely. So, John, if folk want to get in touch with you and engage your fantastic services.
Yes. I haven't got a website.
Well, they can contact us.
I'll be. Where could you find me? Just
you're on LinkedIn.
I've got a Wikipedia.
You're on LinkedIn.
You're on LinkedIn.
I'm on LinkedIn. Yes, find me on LinkedIn.
Find you on LinkedIn.
And that's where I got my info about your football off Wikipedia.
That's the easiest place.
Well, actually, I have actually got a little Wikipedia thing on my footy, which is unbelievable.
That's what I read.
It's full of
if people do,
but it's at least it's there.
If they can't find you, get in touch with Mark and I, and we'll gladly.
Or just tap me on the shoulder to function.
Yeah,
that's right.
You'll see him around.
Yeah.
So, John, thank you.
Thanks,
pleasure.
Guys. Thank you guys for your service. It's a great thing for the town.
No, we love it. Okay, thank you, John.